Welcome to the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I'm Deborah Herlax-Enos, a small-town girl turned TV nutritionist and healthy living expert. I design health programs for the average guy or gal, including those average guys named Metallica. On September 1st, 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I asked every oncologist the same question, why did I get cancer? But none of my doctors had good answers for me. I wanted answers, and that's why I started this podcast. I want to help you to lower your cancer risk and provide self-care tips for those in the battle. I'm getting answers, and I want to share them with you. Today's takeaway for me was about the Clean Water Act of 1974. Wendy was explaining to me that it worked really well for about 15 years. Then water municipalities, so basically where we get our water in our communities, decided that it was just really getting troublesome and expensive to be testing the water on an ongoing basis. So our government deemed that it was okay for them to just test at their own discretion. Well, as you can imagine, their discretion and my discretion might be a little bit different, especially after having cancer. I want to make sure I'm drinking clean water. Wendy has some great tips for us regarding how to get clean water out of her tap. And she also really has some strong opinions about bottled water, which I found a little shocking. I know you're going to walk away from today's episode thinking, wow, I'm really glad I listened to this episode today, and now I know what to do moving forward to make my water cleaner. Oh, I've been really excited about this podcast with Wendy, my new friend Wendy, who is a toxins lawyer and holistic, healthy living coach, basically no tox. Or low toxins anyway. Low tox, which is pretty hard to do, no tox for sure. But low tox, healthy living coach, which I love. And who would have ever thought we would need help with getting rid of toxins in our home? But here we are, Wendy.
Yep, here we are.
Here we are. So tell us a little bit about how you got into cleaning out the toxins out of your home.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I'm a talker. I love to talk, so I could tell you stories forever. So I graduated from law school in 2007 and immediately went into government work doing environmental litigation. So focusing on air quality, water quality, soil quality, that kind of stuff. And I loved it. It was fantastic. But a few years later, I had an opportunity to move to Europe to work on toxins regulation, which I really didn't know was a thing at the time. But I jumped at the chance to live and work in Europe. So I had an opportunity to move overseas and work in European regulation of toxins. And it was fascinating because what I learned was in Europe, they actually take the precautionary approach. Mm-hmm. And for things like shampoos and conditioners and lotions and baby products, they have really strict rules and safety requirements before companies can use those products.
Right.
And my job was actually to compare the United States regulation with the European regulation and decide which one was most protective. And it blew my mind. And I couldn't believe that Europe was so amazing when it came to regulating their products. Mm-hmm. And the United States has no regulation of products. It's the, I promise we're on our good behavior rule set for these companies. They get to decide what's safe and what's not. Mm-hmm. And there's no oversight. So that it was a really eye-opening experience. And when I came back to the States and continued to practice and started to lobby and started to change the laws, I realized really quickly how difficult that was and how much money was involved in keeping these toxins in these products because they're cheap. And I realized that, you know what, if I really want to make an impact and if I really want to do something that helps families, I got to go talk to the moms and the women that are buying the products. And I got to go tell them what's going on so we can do something about it.
Right. Right. And I mean, the European standard is so dramatically different from the American standard. And I had a girlfriend tell me that probably 20 years ago. And on my first trip to Europe, she said, just load up on makeup and, facial cleanser because you can't buy that stuff in the United States. And at that time, I was probably in my early 30s. And I thought, well, why? Why can't we have these same types of products in the US follow the money trail.
Yeah, it really is. You have all of these companies that pay a lot of money to politicians to not pass these laws. The good news is it's catching on, and people are starting to really take notice and calling their legislators and showing up to meetings. And you're starting to see laws being passed in California and the laundry detergent law in New York that everyone's talking about. So you're starting to see the consumers demanding something different.
Right. But I think, to go back to your point, it takes the moms who are, really the heart of the home, the protectors of the home, and just say, I don't want to put that on my kid. I want a clean kid, but do I really have to fill their body with parabens to get them clean?
Yeah, it's the moms.
Yeah.
And studies show that women, as far as we've come in the world, are still 80% pay for and shop for all the products in a home. So they're the ones, going to the store and going on the shelves and picking things out and bringing it home. So
they're the ones you need to be talking to. So, which leads me to another question. So when the water comes out of my tap, and I know that there's an EPA, and I just think, okay, well, it's coming out of my tap and it's not brown, so it's gotta be okay. Then I got diagnosed with cancer and I started questioning everything. So how aware do we need to be of EPA and the guidelines and the Clean Water Act and all of those things? Can we trust our government?
I mean, that's a blanket statement. When it comes to water, it comes to water quality, no, nobody should be drinking tap water. It's really unfortunate. I actually call it the Not So Safe Drinking Water Act because things start out with good intentions, and the Safe Drinking Water Act started out with such really good intentions behind it. They really wanted to clean up the water that people were drinking. And so back in 1974, when it was passed, it was great. And for the next 15 years, the EPA, who was designated as the agency responsible for analyzing these contaminants and deciding what the maximum level could be allowable in water, they passed 89 contaminants in 10 years. And as somebody who works for and has worked for the government, that is impressive. I mean, that had to have been an enormous lift. And then in 1996, the people who provide us our water purveyors in these municipalities, they said, we can't keep up with these filtration requirements and these testing requirements. You have to stop. We can't keep up. And so they amended the Safe Drinking Water Act in 1996 and told the EPA, okay, we're not going to mandate that you test or analyze or do a certain amount per year. You just do it when at your discretion. And since that amendment has passed, only 2 contaminants have been added to the Safe Drinking Water Act maximum contaminant levels.
Since 1996.
Since 1996. Which is a really long time ago. And
sure is. That's a problem.
Most of those contaminants were actually added in the 80s. And here we are 40 years later, and we have way better information. We have so much more health science and data. And so even the things that technically are regulated, they're allowing amounts that are definitely not good for your health. So no, I tell everyone to check their tap water. You can go online to www.ewg.org/tapwater. You can see what's in your water, and you can see the comparison between what it should be using today's health standards.
That's a great tip. And that's that EWG site, which is, that's a great resource. And I'll tag all this in the notes. But I would also think, Wendy, that we're not slowing down the production of chemicals in our country.
Nope.
So I'd imagine the amount of chemicals that are getting dumped into water are always climbing, and that they've only discovered or, have regulated 2 additional chemicals. Probably not a good sign.
No, I've seen a lot of different numbers on this, and they vary, but there's anywhere from 18,000 to 30,000 new chemicals that have come on the market in the last 20 years that we know nothing about their safety. These are things that are being made in labs that, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, 3M, these companies are like, oh, we created this chemical. It does this great thing. It creates suds It's sudsy. Women love suds on their body. This sud's fantastic. Let's put it on the market. And they do, but what is it doing? What is that chemical doing to our bodies, in the short term and the long term? And the answer is nobody knows.
Nobody knows because there's no studies being done either. Yes. Okay. And I would imagine, total guess here, but in areas where maybe lower socioeconomic, there's not a whole lot of testing going on. And let's, you can go online and check the EWG app, but to actually order a test, it can be expensive.
Yeah.
I just ordered one a few months ago and I can afford it, which is great.
Yeah, it definitely hits those areas harder in a couple different ways, not just the testing that's available. And, TAP score is a great resource if somebody does want to test their water, but it is a few $100s in order to get it. The other problem in those areas is the infrastructure, the pipes. The water pipes that are bringing water into these areas are corroded, and those pipes are full of all kinds of chemicals of their own that get added in. I'm not a proponent of tap water. I don't think anybody should be drinking it.
I agree. I have to tell you about one of my favorite cleaning products on the planet. It's called E-Cloth. Now, I've been using E-Cloth for probably 10 years, way before I was diagnosed with cancer. And I have to tell you, these cloths are exceptional. All you do is you wet it with water. You don't need any toxic chemicals to clean up, and it will remove 99% of bacteria and dirt and grime and smudges and you name it. I am absolutely in love with these cloths. I carry one with me all the time. I use it to clean my eyeglasses, my computer, my laptop, my phone. But again, seriously, all you need to do is get it wet and wring it out a little bit and wipe things down. And 99%, seriously, of the bacteria is gone. No inhalation of toxic chemicals. So go to the link in the show notes and use the code CLEAN15 and get 15% off of your e-cleaning cloths. I think you're going to love them as much as I do. Hey everyone, a lot of you have been asking me about the products I use on my face. I've never been one to get a lot of compliments on my skin. But I tell you, since I switched over to this product, it's been about 10 years now, I get so many compliments on my skin, and I want to keep that going. So Body Deli is what I use. It's a small company out of Palm Springs, California. They grow a lot of their own produce that they then end up turning into products for your face. Non-toxic. I mean, honestly, my skin just eats it up. So there's a couple of products that I absolutely love. I've tagged them in the show notes. One is the Phoenix Skin and Neck Oil. I mean, I'm at that age. I need to focus on these things. And I tell you, if I don't use this every night, my skin gets so dry. And then the vitamin C serum. I tell you, whenever I put it on my skin, I feel like it's just like taking this amazing vitamin and my skin just looks better. I get compliments, as I said. My skin kind of just, glows even when I'm not wearing makeup. So I'm a huge fan of Body Deli. Again, the link is in the show notes. Use the code ENOS15 and get 15% off of your purchase. Again, one of my favorite companies, and I hope you enjoy the products as much as I do.
Most bottled water is tap water. And then the added problem with the bottle itself, and I know a lot of people are very up on microplastics is kind of like the big thing that everybody cares about.
Sure is.
But actually, I won't say bigger issue, but another issue is that those plastics have plasticizers in them. And those plasticizers are hormone disruptors. And so especially water bottles that have been out in the sun or they've been sitting a long time, those endocrine disrupting chemicals, they leach into the water. So yeah, no, bottled water is a no for me too.
Okay. Well, you're just not any fun. I'm kidding. No,
The bearer of bad news.
No, this is information we need to know. And I used to travel all the time with the plastic water bottles and just, just commit to buying them wherever I was. And I know it's terrible for the environment, but I had an interview last year with a cancer researcher, and she talked about nanoplastics, microplastics, and that we're ingesting a credit card size per day of plastic. And there's no way to get it out of your system. The only way to get it out is to literally remove the blood from your body and filter it out and re-inject it.
Yeah. No,
people can't afford to do that. We don't have the time to do that. So we need to figure out, how do we cut plastics out of our daily environment?
And I do tell people it's hard, right? Like, it's so hard for people to know what is important, what is not important. And as these things come out, I think there's a fatigue that happens. And because I know I have clients that say to me, well, what can I do? What can I?
Agreed.
Everything's toxic. So you know what? We're just going to see what happens. And so I do think it's important to give people really easy, simple action steps. So I always tell people, go get a quality stainless steel water bottle, fill it with filtered water from your home. And there's a lot of places now. The airport, I travel a ton. Most airports now have those filtration systems. You can fill them up. And so I just try to avoid it where I can. Obviously, if I had to make a choice, and we're all put in this situation, when I am traveling, if I have to choose between tap water and bottled water, I'll try to buy like from a company that I know actually tests their products, since there's no testing regulation of water bottles. So I think Evian is a better quality product than, say, some of those cheaper, brands. So I just try to do the best that I can.
Gotcha. No, and those are good tips, because let's face it, to go low tox can take a lot of time and a lot of money. And I think the fatigue, I have clients who say, I have supplement fatigue. I don't want to take any more supplements. Well, we can also get fatigue. You're right, with looking at our environment and thinking, okay, now I can't burn candles anymore. I can't drink water out of my tap. What are they going to take away next? And we just throw our hands up and say, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I hear that a lot. And it's actually one of the reasons why I started my website. I created this toxin-free shopping guide, and I educate on holistic living for real life, right? I recognize, and I think everybody needs to recognize, there is better is better than not better. And so start with the things that matter the most in your home, where you have the most exposure and you have the most health risks. And then kind of don't stress about the rest, because stress is also a toxin. So if you're have a lot of anxiety about all the toxins everywhere, that's not good for your health either. So the things that make the biggest impact to your health, if you start there and then you slowly over time try to find cleaner swaps or things that work better for you, you can do that slowly. And just, I even tell people to have fun with it. I think it's fun to find new things. Yeah. And while some of these products can be more expensive because the ingredients are higher quality, a lot of times you can save a ton of money. Like cleaners is the perfect example. When you go to the store and you buy those spray bottles, you're paying for water. It's like 10% cleaner and it's 90% water. So you can save a ton of money buying non-toxic cleaner concentrates, get a glass spray bottle and just fill it with water. It's so much more cost effective.
I just started doing that a few months ago, and it's so much more cost effective. And I just feel better not spraying all that junk in my home. Yeah. And of course, I'm very aware of all of the disrupting chemicals and products, because I used to use a ton of them, and then I got breast cancer, and now I'm just like, hey, hold on. Time to really take a look at this. And so you talk about, where do we start? So it sounds like water's
number one.
The best place to start.
I always tell people, and it is an investment, right? Like there's not a cheap way to do that. Getting a water filter in your under sink of your kitchen, so the water that you're drinking should be your highest priority. And so I always tell people, if you have to save money to do that, that's fine. I have options on my shopping guide of cheaper ones. There's a picture that I really like from a company called Clearly Filtered. So
I've heard of them.
Yeah, there are ways to get cleaner water. And I think that should be the first thing that everybody does. Yeah.
Okay. And there are a variety of options as far as spending money. So I'm going to tag Wendy's guide in our show notes so you can be able to download that and just kind of see, where do I start? And also if I have a lot of confusion, where do I start? Because there's reverse osmosis, there's gravity, like the Berkey. I mean, there's probably lots of options. And counter space is an option for many, and finances another big roadblock.
Yeah, families have to find, and this is where it gets hard because now you have to do research, and you have to go online, and you're reading all of these things that have these specifications, and you're not quite sure what you're looking at. And some people don't want to install something; they don't want to pay a plumber. So those gravity filters, even though they take up room on the counter, those are a good option for those families. The families that really want to put something under their sink so they can just get their water, their fresh water in a faucet on the tap, those people can use that. There are a lot of filters on the market, and the majority of the ones that you're going to buy, like say in a grocery store, like a Brita or something like that, those are nothing but carbon filters. And they don't really do much other than make your water taste better. And so I really encourage people to get a high quality filter, at least a block of carbon, if not a KDF. And I have a lot of this like in blogs on my website where I kind of explain the different ones. Reverse osmosis, which you brought up, is one that is an option. It actually takes 99.9% of all contaminants out of the water. It has the highest rate of removal, but it also takes away all the minerals. So if you decide that you want to get a reverse osmosis filter, just make sure you're putting minerals back into your water, because you don't want to have that dehydrated state with the lack of electrolytes in your body, because you're drinking water that doesn't have any minerals in it. And I don't even like how that tastes. I always know when somebody has RO water in their house when I taste it.
I agree. And you have a video on your Instagram site. And I think do you call this dead water when it's dead water, which I've never heard that expression, but it's so true. And, your body does need the minerals and the electrolytes to really stick in your cells. And if you're removing all that, I think you're just going to end up drinking, and still never really.
Yeah. You get super
satisfying.
Studies show out just after 8 weeks, like there's serious consequences to your blood flow, your hydration, your heart rate, to everything. I mean, you have to have those minerals, and water from a source, like an underground source, fresh water sources have minerals in them naturally. So, so if you need to have an RO, that's okay. Just make sure you're putting the minerals back in it.
Okay. That's a really good point. And as you mentioned, Evian and maybe some other brands that, it's bottled, as they say, at a source.
Right.
I would like to think that it's going to be naturally fairly high in minerals.
Yeah. Some of them actually will market it as like high mineral content water. High mineral content is also the same as saying something's alkaline. So you see a lot of companies selling alkaline water. I think Life Water is one of the brands that says, they have a high mineral content. So you can actually look for that. Okay.
Any other tips on water?
Drink a lot of it.
Yeah.
Hydration is a big deal. It's a really big drinking deal. Clean water is really good for you.
If you think about what percentage of your body is water, I can see why you really recommend that that's the first thing people change, and to really budget for it, because it's not going to be a cheap fix, but it's going to be a fix that will help your family for generations.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, y'all, I am so picky about fish. I only eat wild fish. And yes, I'm that ridiculously obnoxious person in the restaurant where I interrogate the wait staff asking, what kind of fish is this? Where did it come from? But this is why I love ButcherBox wild salmon. Their wild salmon is caught in the wild in the Bristol Bay area of Alaska, which is really known for the best sockeye salmon on the planet. It's also sustainably harvest, which is really important to me. There's never anything added to it. And I love that ButcherBox has partnered with fishermen who really uphold strict fishing and handling practices to guarantee the taste and, again, the quality. I am not good at eating salmon. I'm good if somebody puts it in front of me, but I'm not so good at buying it and cooking it. And according to Dr. Mark Hyman, the Mediterranean diet can be super helpful in lowering cancer risk, and he recommends at least 2 days a week eating wild salmon. And this is where ButcherBox really helps me out. I get my box. I've got individual wrapped pieces of salmon. I can defrost it in minutes and probably have dinner on the table in about 15 to 20 minutes. I talked to my friends at ButcherBox and asked them, listen, I'm not good at eating salmon, and I'm guessing my listeners aren't either. So can you offer us a deal? And they put together, honestly, an unprecedented deal. So when you sign up for ButcherBox, you're going to get 2 pounds of wild-caught Alaskan sockeye salmon free in every box for 3 months and $20 off of your first order by using the code ENOS. Sign up today at butcherbox.com/ENOS and use the code ENOS. Boy, that's a lot of my last name to get 2 pounds of salmon for free in every box for 3 months plus $20 off of your first order. Thank you for joining me today on the Why Did I Get Cancer podcast. I've got my shopping guide for all of my cancer self-care items in the show notes, along with information about today's guest and our show sponsors. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast so you never miss an episode. Keep in mind, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a gal that got diagnosed with cancer and wanted answers. If you need medical advice, please be sure to consult with a medical professional. And thank you for listening.